6 years after Harry and Meghan tore into Britain and the royal family before a global audience, the most explosive question is no longer why they left it, is why they are supposedly coming back now, and why King Charles appears to have opened the door while William and Catherine are left facing the fallout. This is not being presented as a quiet family reunion. It looks like a royal power struggle arriving on Britain's doorstep, with money, titles, children, palace influence, and one rapidly ticking clock all tangled together.
Yeah, they've changed their mind. They've changed their mind, Richard, because they realise they're not making the money. They're hated in Hollywood. They're not even invited to the Oscars or the Emmys. So King Charles has to wake up, okay? Because the idea that Harry and Meghan are coming back here just to be private citizens is delusional. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle were to Megxit the most unhappy royal homecoming in history. Yes, they are on their way back, folks. The dastardly duo, the fake Duke and Duchess, have tonight confirmed a return to the United Kingdom. They informed King Charles on Sunday. Prince William exploded, and can you blame him? Absolutely not.
They're coming back. Not next year, not even in the autumn. They are returning at the end of this month. Harry, Meghan, Archie and Lily are coming back to Britain in the next few days. Their stay is expected to be a lengthy one, several years, because Archie and Lily are going to enter the British education.
The reaction was immediate. The story allegedly landed just before 10 on Wednesday night, and by midnight the internet was erupting. Phones were buzzing, headlines were multiplying, and suddenly Britain was confronted with a possibility many people thought was finished for good. Harry and Meghan were supposedly preparing to return, with vans allegedly booked and school arrangements reportedly already in place. And that created the question nobody could escape. After everything that was said about Britain, after the interviews, the book, the Netflix revelations, and the accusations that the royal environment had become unbearable, how could this possibly be happening? Then came the reaction from across the Atlantic, and it was savage.
What have we always said? The biggest risk, P. Dinah, for Prince Harry is to want to leave that woman while they are in California, because she would get custody of the children and he would not be able to return. So there is a lot going on here, P. Dinah, and I think a big part of this is Harry preparing for his post-divorce world, where he has the children in the United Kingdom, because guess what? He's stupid, but when he reads in Vanity Fair, confirmation of a report that I first made, P. Dinah, that his wife is shopping around a post-divorce autobiography, surely that's when you wake up and you say, I can't stay here. I can't stay here. She is setting me up.
So he's forcing her. He's forcing her hand. I'm going back with the children. I agree. This is why it was so sudden. This is exactly why it's so sudden. What's Meghan going to do if Harry says, I'm going back with the kids? What is she going to do? He has every legal right to go back with these children. Meghan doesn't want to go, but now her cards have been played. She doesn't have a chance now, because now this is going to be on UK soil.
Piers Morgan reportedly joked that he might have to immigrate. Megyn Kelly fired back that America had already done its time. Meghan McCain was even blunter, arguing that nobody cared about D-list royals and that Britain could have them back. Lee Cohen summed up the mood with one explosive word: Armageddon. And suddenly, this was no longer just a royal family story. It had become a cultural grenade. Commentators were piling on, social media was exploding, and the same question kept returning. If Harry and Meghan really were coming back, what exactly were they coming back for? Then the numbers started appearing.
On hearing this news tonight, I just urge Prince William and Catherine to stay strong. The public are with you. The British public do not want these chancers and grifters and no good people who actually have been on a campaign to destroy the British royal family back on British soil. This is a nightmare. They must not win.
Every poll that appeared that night seemed to deliver the same brutal answer. Nearly 9 out of 10 people asked whether they wanted Harry and Meghan back, reportedly chose one simple response: no, not maybe, not let's see what happens, just a loud, unmistakable no.
Do you want them to return? 89% of you say no at the...
Nearly 9 out of 10 respondents reportedly said no when asked whether they wanted Harry and Meghan back. But underneath the biggest video of the night, one comment supposedly rose above the rest, and it was not directed at Meghan. It was directed straight at William. Stand strong. 3 words. Yet those 3 words captured the entire emotional battlefield, because beneath the arguments about houses, schools, Christmas, and family reunions was a much bigger fear that Harry's return could reopen a conflict that never truly disappeared. And then came the detail that made the story even more explosive.
I think this was Harry making a very abrupt decision to go back. Just yesterday, reports are talking about how he's going to go back more often to the UK. He was already planning to go to the UK and then come back. And I think something has happened because they are not aligned in purpose. Don't think it's Harry and Meghan making this joint decision. This is Harry alone making this decision. And now Meghan is going to have to follow, because I think there is a problem with this as a couple. They are not in union.
According to the narrative surrounding the comeback, one man wanted the door reopened, while King Charles eventually said yes. That changed everything, because suddenly Harry and Meghan were not merely talking about visiting Britain, they were supposedly preparing to live within Britain's orbit again. And that is where William enters the center of the storm. Peter Hunt reportedly described the potential reaction from the Prince of Wales as apoplectic, before raising the terrifying prospect of two rival courts, William's and Harry's, two camps, two brothers, one crown. That sounds less like reconciliation and more like a royal civil war waiting for the right spark. Tom Sykes reportedly called the move a huge slap in the face for William and immediately raised the question of future royal occasions. Christmas, Remembrance Sunday, Sandringham. What happens if Harry simply decides he wants to appear? That is the uncomfortable part. Harry does not need to become a working royal to create chaos. He only needs proximity. And suddenly, every family gathering becomes a potential headline. Every photograph becomes ammunition. Every smile becomes suspicious. The late Queen's old arrangements, the decisions made when Harry and Meghan stepped away, and the boundaries that once seemed designed to keep separate royal lives from colliding could all be tested again. Inside the Wills camp, the memories would be impossible to ignore. The Oprah interview, the accusations, the relentless public pressure, the online fury surrounding Catherine. From that perspective, this would not necessarily feel like a son coming home. It could feel like the past walking straight through the front door. And then comes the most uncomfortable possibility of all, Christmas. If Harry and Meghan are suddenly around Sandringham, does William bring George, Charlotte, and Louis into that environment? Or does he make a different choice and take the children somewhere else? Because if that happened, the empty chairs would tell their own story, and royal silence can sometimes be louder than any statement. And then came the attacks on their business empire. Commentators argued that the Netflix arrangement had failed to deliver what was expected, that Meghan's commercial ventures had lost momentum, and that Harry's speaking career had allegedly fallen dramatically from the enormous fees once associated with his name. The message was unmistakable. America was supposedly no longer providing the same financial runway, and Britain, despite everything that had happened there, suddenly looked useful again. That is what made the alleged return so humiliating in the eyes of critics. After spending years building an identity around leaving the institution behind, Harry and Meghan would now be moving closer to the very institution they had walked away from. Then, almost unbelievably, one of their defenders appeared on television and tried to rescue them, insisting that Harry and Meghan were the couple who were truly in love, before contrasting them with William and Catherine. The host immediately pushed back and defended the Prince and Princess of Wales. What should have been a defense of Harry and Meghan became another controversy, another argument, another reminder that the comeback story could barely survive a single television segment without pulling William and Catherine directly into the fire. The anger then became even more personal. Critics accused Harry and Meghan of showing extraordinary audacity by returning after everything that had been said about the royal family. The comparison with the Duke and Duchess of Windsor was raised, alongside accusations that Harry was attempting to reestablish himself inside the royal orbit against the wishes of the monarchy, the public, and even parts of his own family. And then came the moment that potentially changed the entire balance of power. King Charles reportedly learned about the move by telephone only days before the wider public heard about it. That detail matters because Robert Jobson reportedly described the situation as a fait accompli. The children were coming. Granddad would see more of them. It sounded heartwarming until the darker interpretation emerged. Charles had allegedly not been given a genuine opportunity to negotiate. He was presented with something that had effectively already been decided. One commentator described it as holding a gun to the king's head, suggesting that the children themselves had become the leverage in a much larger royal negotiation. And Charles had a terrible choice. He was still a father. He was still a grandfather. He wanted to see his son and grandchildren, but he was also the king, and every decision he made affected the institution his son William was preparing to inherit. The palace could issue carefully worded statements about welcoming private family contact, but behind those polished sentences was an uncomfortable reality. Charles could be trying to keep peace today while creating a much bigger confrontation tomorrow. William, meanwhile, reportedly had every reason to be furious. He had stayed. He had carried the workload. He had protected the monarchy while the family dispute became global entertainment. Yet he was apparently not even given the courtesy of a warning before the return became public. That creates a dangerous imbalance. Charles may believe he is buying family peace, but William could see the price as being charged directly against the future of his own reign. Then came the financial theory. Critics argued that Harry and Meghan had exhausted their royal material. For years, their greatest commercial asset had been the royal family itself, the interviews, the documentary, the accusations, the private stories, the palace conflicts. But eventually, even the most explosive story becomes old news. You can only reopen the same wound so many times before audiences stop reacting. So perhaps the new product was proximity itself. Get closer to the monarchy. And suddenly there are new photographs, new royal occasions, new family tensions, new headlines, and potentially new commercial opportunities. And that is why the timing surrounding King Charles's health became such a major part of the speculation. Concern for a father can be completely genuine, but it can also provide a respectable reason to move closer without admitting that other motivations might exist. Then came the alleged media coordination. Two newspapers reportedly published remarkably similar versions of the comeback story almost simultaneously, each presenting its version as a world exclusive. Critics immediately began asking how two supposedly independent outlets could possess nearly identical information at nearly identical times. Was it simply coincidence? Or had somebody carefully decided where the story would appear and who would receive it? That question became even more suspicious when one major newspaper was allegedly left outside the circle, a publication involved in Harry's recent legal battles. Suddenly, the media strategy looked almost as interesting as the royal strategy. If the information had been selectively distributed, somebody was choosing the audience before the public even knew there was a story. And then comes the final twist. If Harry and Meghan really do return, every photograph becomes valuable. A first appearance, a family walk, a meeting with the children, perhaps even a carefully framed image of cousins together. One picture could communicate reconciliation without requiring a single apology. But Britain remembers, and that is the problem. The moment Harry and Meghan arrive, the old accusations arrive with them. The interviews arrive. The documentary arrives. The book arrives. The questions arrive. Why return to a country that was once described as unbearable? Why bring the children into an environment that was previously portrayed as hostile? And why make the move now, while Charles is king and before William takes the throne? That is the ticking clock underneath this entire saga. Because once William becomes king, the rules could change. The titles, the invitations, the access, the royal proximity, everything could become harder to recover. So if this return is really about rebuilding influence, then timing is everything. The alleged Windsor connection makes the situation even more explosive. If Harry settles close to William and Catherine, physical distance between the brothers could shrink dramatically while emotional distance remains enormous. The palace could find itself managing not one royal household, but two competing centers of attention.